The Barrow Trust, now called the William Barrow Charity, is a charity devoted to helping the poor of the parish of Borden. The charity was established in 1708. By 1874 they had surplus funds, and it was decided to establish an endowed secondary school here in Borden, despite some vocal opposition from many parishioners. They chose this 7-acre site owned by the trust near Riddles Road. The architect was Hay and Oliver, a London firm. The builder selected by the architects was Richard Avard of Maidstone, and his was the lowest bid, £7,365. The buildings were built of brick with Bath stone dressing in the partly Elizabethan and partly Gothic style. The bricks were all made on site by William Kemsley of Key Street. The headmaster's house formed part of the premises. When the school opened in 1878, it was known as Barrow's Boys' School, Borden. It was also referred to simply as Borden School or Barrow School, Borden. The Reverend William Henry Bond, M.A., was a Cambridge graduate in his 20s when he took up his first post as a headmaster. It was intended that the school should develop along public school lines and take in pupils, boys only, nationally rather than predominantly from the local area. The school was designed to be for about 130 scholars, of whom about 50 were to be boarders. On opening day, there were 23 pupils enrolled in the school, all of them day boys, of whom 9 came from the parish of Borden itself. The Reverend Bond failed to attract many pupils to board at the school. The difficulties of transport from the centre of Sittingbourne and the surrounding villages, or parental choice, meant that many of the boarders were in fact local boys. During the 1880s, the Barrow Trust was giving the school £650 a year, which went a long way towards meeting the needs of the school. And if new pupils could have been found in sufficient numbers, then its financial base would have been secure. As it was, the school had to begin to rely upon public money, and in 1895 it became one of those schools aided by but not maintained by Kent Education Committee. In 1893 the Reverend Bond left the school and Mr. James W. Thurnham became the new headmaster. Under his headship the school flourished, and the number of boarders came to outnumber the number of day pupils considerably. In 1901 the census recorded 65 pupils boarding here, and for a few years there were 10 from South Africa alone. On Sundays, weather permitting, the boarders would walk in crocodile file to Borden village, where they would attend the church service. In 1906 Mr. Thurnham left Borden to establish his own school near Herne Bay. Unfortunately for Borden School, it was back to square one, because he took most of the staff and the 120 boarding pupils with him. The new headmaster was Mr. William Murdoch, and he arrived with the new staff in 1906. He managed to start building the reputation of the school locally, and particularly on the Isle of Sheppey. The number of day pupils increased significantly. The fee-paying pupils were joined by an increasing number of scholarship pupils, from whom a high level of academic achievement was expected. By 1914 there were 79 pupils. There was a cadet force established here since the 1900s, and it's believed that hundreds of old Bordenians, as they are known, served during the First World War, as many as 40 of them losing their lives, including one ex-teacher, and one old Bordenian won the Military Cross. In November 1923, the school endured a 4-day inspection carried out by the Board of Education. The inspectors criticised the buildings harshly. It became accepted that Borden Grammar School had outgrown its premises. By 1925, plans were afoot to move the school to a new site, although building did not begin for another 2 years. Finally, in the Easter of 1929, the pupils carried their books and equipment from the old building to the brand new premises at a 9-acre site in the Avenue of Remembrance. Sittingbourne and its surrounding villages have always had a history of fruit growing and farming, and there was an increasing need for an educational establishment to train young people in the agricultural skills required in Kent. Kent County Council had initially in 1919 purchased Grove End Farm at Tunstall at a price of £14,000, and it then went on to take on the school premises in 1929. The school buildings were altered to accommodate 40 residential students, with the first Kent Farm Institute course beginning in October 1929 with 17 students. In 1930, the KFI buildings were formally opened by the Minister of Agriculture, Noel Buxton. It was not until October 1933 that the KFI had a full complement of 40 students. During the Second World War, the college changed over to the training of 40 students from the Women's Land Army, but this only lasted a couple of months. For the duration of the war, the farm at Grove End was run on a purely commercial basis. In 1940, the War Office took over the buildings for use as a field hospital. Kent Farm Institute resumed in 1944. Over the years, KFI was involved in raising lots of money for local charities, but probably what many people remember the students for are their antics in the Sittingbourne Carnival in the 1960s. Let's just say that a certain amount of manure was thrown before the practice was finally banned. The KFI moved from Sittingbourne in 1966 to be merged with Swanley Horticultural College and relocated at Hadlow. The site was then taken over and run as a non-residential teacher training college until education cuts under the Labour government in the 1970s closed the college. In 1979, the building became the Sittingbourne Adult Education Centre, and courses from photography to French were run here. Some of the land was sold off for development, and these houses in Grayling's Court were built. In 2017, an application to tear down the building and build 8 modern flats in its place was rejected on the grounds that it would harm the character and appearance of the local area. Adult education moved to more modern facilities in the London Road trading estate, and the building was vacated in early 2018. The site has now been sold to a preferred bidder in order to convert the building to residential accommodation. Today, in 2020, the grounds remain on the edge of Sittingbourne and can still be enjoyed by local residents. The character and appearance of the area is pleasant, as it has been since the school opened nearly 150 years ago, as I hope it will continue. If you have found this video interesting, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit our website.